So if you've ever wondered how you should have your camera set up, then you are in the perfect place, because today I'm going to give you a behind the scenes tour of my own camera setup. Now be sure to watch right until the end, because I'm going to share with you how I would set my camera up if you're just starting out and not yet shooting in manual mode. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Now, my name's Audrey Ann, and I've helped thousands of photographers just like you take photos of their children, their family, and the world around them that they love. So let's dive in now, and I'll give you that behind the scenes tour. So here we are in the back of my camera, and I'm going to go through this screen with you, which has all of the major settings. I'm going to show you exactly how I have this set up. Now this screen is going to go off from time to time because I'm not using it. So I'm just going to keep pressing this button and that will bring it up. So let's just start at the beginning and work our way along. So the first setting here is M for manual mode. So I'll pretty much always shoot in manual mode. You may occasionally find me in aperture priority mode if I have to. Most of the time though, I like to shoot in manual, as that gives me most control over my camera settings, and which most importantly, how my image is going to look. Now the next one here is shutter speed, shutter speed, and then aperture, and then ISO. Now those are variable based on whatever I'm photographing. Now I do actually have a video which shows you different example photos along with the camera settings that I chose. So do check that out. That's going to give you information on how to use each of those, or when I might use different settings. The next one along is exposure compensation. Don't need to worry about that if I'm shooting in manual mode, so I can leave that alone. And if I don't have any flash, then again, I can leave that one alone. Next up is custom controls, and I do actually have this set slightly differently because I have this button here, my AF on button, that is set to also start my autofocus. So this is often called back button focusing. Now I do use that, so I have that set up. And move along here to, this is your picture style settings. Now I have this at neutral, but if you shoot in RAW, then this is irrelevant because it's only going to apply that to your JPEG settings. So I'm going to move along again. This is your white balance setting. Now I'm going to either have that set at custom or I'm going to use Kelvin. Now not every camera has Kelvin, and if you don't, then you obviously won't see that K there. But for me, I'll either be in custom if I'm using a grey card or a Expo disc or other white balance tool, and I'll use Kelvin if I'm not. So moving along, again, if you can set this white balance shift bracket. It makes it you can sort of get 3 different white balances. Just I prefer to get it right instead of having the camera having to take 3 different shots for me. And this one is the auto lighting optimizer. Again, I want to take control of the camera, not the camera, so I have that always disabled. So if I move along, this is just the recording standard. Just have that at standard. Switch back. Oh, I might have to set it before I can switch back. Here we go. Now this next one here is the file format. In other words, what you're going to shoot in, either JPEG or RAW. I do recommend that you shoot in RAW. I always shoot in RAW because I want that control over editing. So RAW gives you so much more leeway in your editing program. You can bring back blown highlights a little bit more easily, you can bring up shadows more easily, fix your exposure, and you can also fix the white balance if you got that correct. So it gives you so much more latitude when you're editing, which is why I always make sure that I'm shooting in that. Now if I move down and move right along to the end here, so this next one here is your autofocus mode, and you have 3 different modes, Al Servo, AI focus, or AL focus I think it is, and then one shot. I never use this middle one. I always either use one shot or AL Servo. Now if you're shooting in Nikon, you have a very similar setup. They're just called something different. So AL Servo is called AF-C if you're on a Nikon. Oops, gone again. And one shot is called AFS. So it's the same things, but it is different, just a different name if you use Nikon. Now, if I move along, spot metering, I always use spot metering, or nearly always use spot metering, because again, that gives me so much more control over my exposure, and I can expose for different parts of the scene. So shooting in spot metering is a bit of a must for me. Now, this is your drive mode. This is when you can choose to take lots of different photos. If you hold down the button on your camera, you can use that's called burst mode. You can take a burst of photos at any one time. Uses up a lot of battery, and it can take time to write to your memory card, which is, unless I really want it set in that way, I usually have that low speed continuous if I needed it. So I'll just set that to there. And that is all the settings here on my camera. Now, if you're just getting started, I do actually recommend a different camera setup, because mine is set up to everything is manual. I take control of all of my settings, and that's what I recommend that you work towards too. But if you're not there yet, here's how I would set up your camera. So let's take a look at the settings now if you're just starting out. So if you are on auto, here's what I would like you to do and move to. I'd like you to change to aperture priority mode. You'll find it on the top dial here. Change to aperture priority mode, and then you can choose the aperture yourself, and the camera will choose the shutter speed and the ISO for you. Now you'll see that here that there's no longer a shutter speed because the camera is going to choose it, and my ISO is on auto. So the only one you are choosing is aperture. And then eventually you're going to choose the ISO yourself, then the shutter speed in manual mode. So manual mode is your final destination. Don't stop before you get there, and just take baby steps until you get there. I wouldn't touch custom controls. That would be a bad idea for you right now. You can use exposure compensation if your image is too dark. So it will be right here on 0 to begin with. If your image is too dark, you can move it up, and that's going to add exposure. In other words, make your image brighter. Or you can move this down if your image is too bright, and that's going to make it darker. So if I move down, if you're editing your photos, then have this in neutral, because I would recommend that you switch to JPEG unless you are editing your photos yourself. So it's a tricky one, this. As soon as you start editing, I recommend switching to the RAW file format. If not, shoot in JPEG and just choose neutral. Now, white balance, you can have that set to auto, but when you feel ready, you can start to use any of these presets here. And if you feel brave enough, you can start to learn how to do your own custom white balance. Let's get back to the beginning. I'll just set that there. Then I would, as I said, for the RAW setting, if you're not editing your photos yet, just stick to JPEG. You can switch to that later. And you can keep on that on low speed continuous or something similar. And for your metering, I would change from spot metering, which is how I have that set up for pro level shooting, and switch to evaluative shooting. Again, you're going to learn how to use spot metering. This is just to get you started. And with regard to the focus, it's either one shot or all servo, which I recommend that you choose yourself. But if you're just getting started, you can use the auto function there, I'll focus. And again, you will have an option for that if you use Nikon. So if this video has left you feeling inspired and wanting to learn more, then here's what I recommend that you do. Go and make sure that you sign up to watch my free masterclass, Pro Tricks for Professional Level Photos, where I'm going to give you so much more information. Just go to audrianphoto.com/class to watch it. You'll find a link to that underneath this video, along with links to other resources that I think you will love. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now. So thanks for watching this video on my camera setup. If you enjoyed it, please make sure that you hit that like button. And also don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you'll stay in the loop for future trainings as soon as they are released.